Fear Walking, Redefining Leadership in an Age of Uncertainty. In uncertain times, it is all too easy to feel crippled with indecision due to fear of what lies ahead. Having courage doesn't mean dispelling fear, but acknowledging it and tapping into self-certainty while planning for the future. English philosopher Thomas Hobbes wrote, "Fear and I were born twins together." This is a sardonic reflection on the circumstances of his birth. Hobbes was born prematurely to a mother who was supposedly panicked by the menacing news of the Spanish Armada approaching British shores in 1588. Hobbes's exploration of the concept of fear, as well as the role fear plays in shaping society and the ways it can be manipulated for political and social gain, is central to his influential work, which is still relevant more than 4 centuries later. Fear has played a starring role during the Annus Horribilis that was 2020. Raging bushfires, geopolitical tensions, climate anxiety, and the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, with its health and economic consequences spilling well into 2021, have stoked dread, anxiety, and uncertainty for individuals and businesses. From small business owners through to heads of state, leaders were asked thorny questions that many struggled to answer, let alone sugarcoat. Leaders have had to step up in a big way, and with the end to disruption and uncertainty nowhere in sight, the only way forward is to learn to live with and lead through fear. For much of 2020, John Karagounis had an up-close and personal view of how business leaders dealt with staring into the abyss. Some were paralyzed by fear, while others were energized by the challenge. As CEO and managing director of the CEO Circle, roles he has held for the past 12 years, Karagounis has close daily contact with CEOs and other C-suite executives from across Australia from all types of organizations. The Circle holds regular meetings with groups of no more than 12 leaders, confidentially discussing the issues and challenges they are facing from professional to personal. The small size and intimacy of the Circle groups mean that many leaders can let their guard down. Karagounis says fear of the unknown consumed many leaders he talked to last year, especially during the early days of the pandemic. We've never faced these times before. We've never gone through a pandemic that has impacted business and stopped economies overnight, he says. Leadership expert Margie Worrell has also carefully observed how different leaders reacted and handled the situation as the COVID-19 crisis unfolded. The author of several books on leadership and maximizing human potential, Worrell says the COVID-19 pandemic has been such an unsettling experience because it has upended certainties. She says the existential nature of the crisis, which ranged from anxiety about personal health through to the potential collapse of the global economy, allowed fear to creep into the darkest corners of our minds. This highly personalized manifestation of fear led to doubt and insecurity for even some of the most resilient people. For that reason, Worrell advises that before leading others, leaders manage their mindset by homing in on their core values and principles. She says, "We must lead ourselves first, and how well we do that will impact how well we can embolden others to take the courageous actions that their fears would rather they didn't take." With so much outside our control, we have to double down on focusing what lays within it. A leader's ability to embolden others to be braver is directly proportional to their willingness to take action in the presence of their fears and misgivings. The essence of courage is taking action amid the risks, uncertainty, and ambiguity. We've been dealing with that in unprecedented proportions throughout 2020. When the outside world cannot provide us with the certainty we seek, we should look for it within, grounding ourselves in self-certainty, says Worrell. I invite leaders to reflect on who they want to be as a leader: decisive, optimistic, calm, inspiring, compassionate, brave. Getting clarity about what you want to be for those in your charge is a vital foundation for good leadership. Emotions are contagious, for better or worse, says Worrell, and leaders need to harness the power of emotional contagion in positive ways. People look to leaders often with a critical eye, passing for inconsistencies and weaknesses. This is why, Worrell argues, leaders act as an emotional barometer, especially in times of crisis. She says, people want to count on the person in charge to make good quality decisions under pressure. They know those in charge can't predict or control the future, but when they can trust that they are at least in control of themselves, capable of making sound choices that serve the best interests of those in their charge, it provides a form of psychological safety net. In the world of investing, American business tycoon and philanthropist Warren Buffett has called fear and greed super contagious diseases. Similarly, Worrell says anxiety can run rampant through an organization if the leadership group appears spooked. She says, fear is probably the most contagious emotion of all. Left unchecked, it will filter down through the organization, driving smart, capable people to make overcautious, short-sighted decisions. So leaders have to act with the courage, the calm, and the deliberate optimism they want to instill in others. The CEO Circle's John Karagounis says one thing he has learned from watching business leaders operating under extreme stress is that leaders must display excessive decisiveness, which is the ability to take action and move forward with enough velocity to carry people with them. Without discounting the need for due diligence and rational and reasonable analysis, he says leaders who provide their teams with a clear and distinct vision of where they are going and a roadmap to get there create a sense of momentum as well as purpose within an organization. He says, excessive decisiveness is about accelerating the way we make decisions and solve problems. To do that, leaders must have the resilience to back themselves and back their teams. If the COVID-19 crisis taught us anything about organizations, it is that we can get things done a lot faster and more efficiently than we previously thought possible. Suppose a leader is seen to be prevaricating or procrastinating. In that case, says Karagounis, others will see the behavior as a sign that the leader is confused, overwhelmed, or even clueless about the way forward. From there, it is a short path to losing the trust, support, and cooperation of those you lead. Karagounis says excessive decisiveness requires leaders to focus on three key areas: concise and practical communications, flexible tactics and strategies, and smart deployment of the resources at hand. He notes, excessive decisiveness requires confidence and composure to advance on opportunities and tackle problems without leaning too heavily on the comforts of collaboration and consensus. In testing times, leaders might lose the confidence to do this, but it is something leaders must do if they are to find clarity in uncertain times. Dr. Susan David, psychologist at Harvard Medical School, defines courage as the capacity to first face difficult emotions, thoughts, and stories with curiosity and compassion, and then to move in the direction of your values. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is fear walking, she says. Margie Worrell says a significant paradigm shift in leadership to come out of the COVID-19 crisis will be the acceptance that we have to lead decisively through uncertainty. We cannot wait for the uncertainty to pass before we make plans and move forward. We have to embrace uncertainty as a norm and be willing to make the best decisions we can in the moment and then be brave enough to iterate on them often. John Karagounis sees the past year as a monumental learning experience, particularly for leaders who may have coasted through good times and then suddenly had to face the scale and complexity of the pandemic. He says those who have had the self-awareness to recognize their fear and use it as a guiding light emerge stronger than before. They could provide a beacon on the hill for their people, he says. Those who held on to their purpose and didn't lose sight of their why were the ones who were able to sustain through this whole period. They had clarity on what they needed to do and clarity on why they're doing it. Did they have to change how they were doing things? Absolutely. They failed at times, but they treated those failures as gifts. They had the mindset to look at the failures and learn quickly from them. As Thomas Hobbes pointed out 4 centuries ago, fear is part of the human condition. Without it, humans would never have evolved and survived. When we deny the existence of fear, pretend it doesn't exist, or wish it away, we tell ourselves a lie that exposes us to even greater dangers. Having the courage to walk with fear and understanding how our faltering footsteps can lead and inspire others might be one of the great leadership lessons to emerge from the beginning of the 21st century.